All right, so what I just did was I cleaned up the edge of the eagle's body that extended out a little too far that we didn't need because I wanted the edge of the body to match the edge of the penguin. So now it's doing that nicely. And I duplicated that head layer. I'm going to turn my opacity all the way back up. So that's looking quite good at this point, right? Okay. All right, so let's talk about color first. Color. Right now, I want my eagle, the head, to morph into the penguin's body better, right? And so in order for that to happen, I'm going to focus on the brown feathers on the eagle. So I want these brown feathers to match the penguin feathers on the body. But obviously, when we look at the penguins, this penguin has feathers that are colored, they're different colored in different sections, right? So to the right, we have this sort of blackish blue color of the feathers. And then what color are the feathers on the rest of the penguin here, like on its torso, on its belly and chest? What color would you say this is? Mm-hmm.
Yellow.
It is yellow. Yeah. So I'm being very specific when I'm asking you guys this because when people generalize, they're like, yeah, penguins are black and white. But is this actually white right here? No, the feathers of the eagle's head are more white than the body of the penguin. Do you see that? So it's something called color acuity that as artists and especially as graphic designers, we have to be color experts, right? And we have to be able to color match. So being able to pick up the subtle colors that exist in an image is key. So that was great. You guys noticed that there was yellow in the penguin's chest, right? It's a sort of like a champagne-y color, right? Like a champagne yellow. So we want to actually change the brown feathers to match that champagne color. And obviously, it only extends to this section because from here back, it's going to be that blackish blue. Mm-hmm. Sure, just wipe it down and you do it, okay? All right, so that being said, I want to select these brown feathers. What's the best way to select those feathers that's nice and quick? What tool should I use? All right, 5 points to the best guess. What should I use? What's the best suggestion? How do I select these brown feathers specifically? Luke.
The lasso.
I can use the lasso tool, absolutely. That's one option. Another option I'm also going to do is I'm going to use the quick selection tool. So here we go. And when you select on it, you have to press Shift to extend your selection. There we go. So it's selecting all the areas that are similar, like the brown color. It's helping me. There we go. All right. So this particular selection, is it going to work if I have this whole entire brown section selected, or do I have to adjust it slightly? Adjust it, right? Because we don't want this section that is right above the blackish feathers to be selected, because if I want this to be champagne, I don't want to accidentally change these feathers as well back here, right? Okay, so here's how we do that. We can use the lasso tool in this case to deselect a part of it. So right now I want to take away this area. So I'm going to actually press the Alt key. And you'll notice when I press Alt and I'm on the lasso tool, a little minus sign appears. And that means that this is what I want to take away. I want to minus, subtract. Okay. So I'm just going to do that and click and drag and click and drag and work my way around. And you'll notice a little circle pops up to close my selection. And there we go. Now it's not included in that part that I wanted, right? Okay. Before we continue, I want to actually save this selection. This is something that you guys probably didn't know that you could do, but it's going to be so important to this project and anything you ever do in Photoshop. Since I'm really happy with this particular selection, how do we save it? Watch this. We're going to go to Select, Save Selection, And I'm going to name it, so I know what my selection was, Eagle Feathers. That's what I'm going to call it. And I click OK. So and I'm also just going to do Control S because I want to save any progress that I made in general. So just so that you know, going forward in this project, if I ever have to select this particular area again, it's saved. And I don't have to worry about going through the whole process that I just did where I used my quick selection tool and then I had to deselect with my lasso tool. I don't have to redo that again to get that selection. Isn't that cool? It's like, there, the work's done. I already did the hard part and now my selection is saved. Okay, did everyone get that at home? Was that clear for everybody? Okay, good. All right, next step, color matching. So I want to match these feathers on the eagle's body to that champagne color on the penguin's body. But the question is, how do we do that and what tool should we use? What do you think? What can I use to start matching these feathers? What do you think, Luke?
If you have to take a long time, but you can use the eyedropper thing to get the right colors and then just like, do it from there.
That's part of it. That could be a little challenging, but it's not gonna like really, that's just gonna show you what color, but it's not gonna actually change anything using the eyedropper tool. All right, does anyone have a guess or a suggestion?
Color balance.
Sure, let's start with color balance. What's the keyboard shortcut for it?
Control B.
Control B, very good. So Control B, color balance. And where should I move my slider? So we just determined that the penguin's body is like a champagne yellow. Where should I move my slider? Towards the yellow zone, right? Okay, that's starting to work. Is that enough?
No.
No, exactly. So let's think about this for a moment. I'm going to click OK. Oh, hang on. Okay, so that just sort of, it changed it a little bit, but what's the issue here? So it's in the yellow, it's yellowish. It's like a yellowish brown, but the issue is that it's too dark still. Does everyone agree with that? Right? So we need it to be much lighter at this point. So I'm going to show you guys several tools. So I want everyone to just stop what you're doing. And this is going to have to be a lot of observation and watching what I'm doing this period because it's going to set you for life in Photoshop. All right. So we have to make it lighter. Now I'm going to show you a few different tool options. If you look over here in your layers section, we have that little black and white cookie, right? Remember how it has lots of great tools in there. The black and white cookie has all your adjustments tools. So we have to make adjustments. So click on your black and white cookie. And we know it has to be lighter. So one of the ways to do that that's really helpful is something called levels. I click on levels and you will notice a pop-up. It looks a little confusing at first and you're like, wow, and it has a sort of like zigzaggy graph thing. And below it has a gradient. It's actually very simple. So there's a gradient here. This is light to medium to dark. And then above that we have a light arrow, a medium arrow, and then a dark arrow, right? Watch what happens when I use this light arrow slider. What is it doing to the feathers? Observe it.
Making it darker.
It's making it lighter. Look, my light arrow, as I slide it to the left, it starts to make my feathers lighter. And what it's really doing, it's an algorithm that it's picking up all those highlights and pushing them even lighter. Do you see that? And reversely, we have a dark slider that when you drag it to the right, it can be so dark that it could turn solid black. That's how dark it can go. The middle slider, when you slide it to the right, it starts to make it a little darker. When you slide it towards the left, look what it starts to do. It makes it lighter. I'm starting to like the look of this. Is this starting to match a little better? It definitely is, right? But in my opinion, it's not totally perfect, but I'm going to leave it at that for now because sometimes even though it's starting to work, like you don't want to overwork it because there's other tools that can help you to fix it even better. And like this might, if I kept going, do you see that it actually washes everything out where like you don't even see certain details and shadows anymore? So that's why I'm saying I'm going to undo that. I don't want to push it further because I know other tools will help me to push it further but not get rid of important details at the same time. Does that make sense, guys? So you're kind of just playing with different adjustments and little increments and experimenting with them. To get rid of this box or any pop-up box going forward, there's a little double arrow icon right here. You just click it and it gets rid of that box on your screen. Okay? And what did it do? It created what's called an adjustment layer. That's what it is. Each of these things are an adjustment to a certain selection that you make or a layer. Okay? So if I turn this eye on and off, you can see the adjustment that was made right there. I'm going to show you something else really cool. So let's just pretend now, before I showed you that I already saved that selection of feathers that I made. But if you wanted to get that selection back, another quick way to do it is this. You see this little icon here on my adjustment layer? It's literally showing the selection where the adjustment was made. So all I do is I press Control and I click on it at the same time. And you see like a little marching ants icon pops up on the hand there? So I press Control and I click and suddenly it selects my selection from before. It highlights it. So I still have to make this lighter. Would you guys agree with that? Right? Because I have to color match it better. So if I start making adjustments while I'm on an adjustment layer, it's not going to work. So because you know why? There's no pixels there. There's no image there. So this will help me get the selection, but I have to go back to my eagle layer. Do you see that? Where my pixels live? Okay. So my selection's there, and let's try out some other adjustments at the black and white cookie tool. And this time I'm going to show you the exposure tool. And there's a lot of different settings on here that you can play around with. Exposure will make this either even lighter or darker. And let's say you hate what you just did and you want it to go back to the way it was. Just type 0. It's very easy. Like that. Okay, you can try offset. Offset kind of fades it out. And that's not really working for us. Or reversely makes the shadows much darker and more intense. I don't like it. So we're not going to use offset. It depends on your image. It might work for you. In my case, it doesn't work for my particular image right now. Gamma correction. However, this is something that can work. What do you guys think so far? Is that starting to look better? It is, right? Okay, so I'm happy with that for now. So I'm going to click my double arrows and all right, that's working. Now I have to go back to my eagle head copy to make any further adjustments because even though I'm liking it, I don't feel like it's perfect yet, right? It could still be adjusted a little more. So what I can do, I could either, because I know this was the selection that I liked, I could either press Control and do my selection like that. And I just want to show you, I could also go to Select. And before I saved my selection, now I can click Load Selection, click on the one that I saved, and that's another way that you can get it back. I'm just showing you guys a few ways to do this. But I also want you to see something. If I don't select my specific selection area that I wanted to change only, look at what happens. Here is hue saturation. This is another color tool that's awesome for changing colors of things. But look what happens. If I don't have my selection selected, do you notice it's changing the color of literally everything in my entire image? We don't want that. Okay, that's why having a selection is really key. And by the way, hue saturation is really cool. We'll just look at this really quick. Saturation is how intense or vibrant the color is. So look how intense you can make your color if you slide it to the right. Or you can actually make your color very subdued reversely. Or you can go light or dark with this, just to show you. I'm going to delete this layer because I don't need it, but it was just to show you. Okay. I want to get my selection back. So I'm going to do Control, click on the icon, but make sure that I'm on my eagle layer. And then this time around, I'm going to also try something called selective color, which is at the bottom. So this is not, it looks a lot like color balance, and color balance you can also find here, by the way, as well. But it's a little different from it because look what it does. Here's selective color. It also has slider scales. Originally it started at red. And I just want you to see, like, if you slide this in different directions, it will change the color ever so slightly. But this general color area is like a yellow, right? So I want to select yellow because I want my yellows to be changed slightly. And then I want to slide it and make the adjustments to my yellow. Let's see. It's working a little more. Okay, because I really wanted to get that champagne feel. And you'll notice sometimes it has like a little more reddish cast, or it has like a little more green cast or blue cast. And basically it's a very slight manipulation of the color. This is being very subtle, right? It's really being very delicate and subtle. Okay, I think I can still adjust the light and dark here just a little bit more for now to make this really start to match even better. You can also try something called brightness and contrast. So you can make it brighter if you want, or more contrasted. That's not really working for me though. Let me delete that. I don't like it. Okay. Oops. I'm going to go back to that selection. I'm going to try one more and then we're going to move on. Okay. I think I'm going to go back to levels again. Yeah, that's working. Okay, I'm liking this, and I'm going to add a little bit of the dark. All right. Let's see. Okay, I think that's pretty good. What do you guys think? Not too bad, right? It is. Now, I'm going to show you something that you just have to be really careful of. Do you guys see that when I was like adjusting I was using all these adjustment layers, some of them do funky effects, not intentionally, but it happens. Do you see like this weird pixel area where it's like green and pink pixels and all that weird stuff happening? That's something that you're going to have to touch up after the fact. So I'm just putting it out there. Like this little area where it got like these weird red pixels, you're going to have to edit after. So I'm just showing you that. All right. So let's say that you're happy overall with your color matching. Oops. Okay. Watch what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually merge all of my adjustment layers into the eagle head copy layer so that they're all combined and it has all of those effects there, but it's all pixels. Okay. As soon as I combine this, it's going to be regular pixels. How do I merge all my layers together? What's my keyboard shortcut? Do you remember? 5 points to the best guess. Any guesses at home? All right, this is why we're going to have to start writing these things down. So in order to merge my layers, I press Shift, right? I select my first one, I hold down the Shift key, I select the layer that I want to end up at, and then I press Control E to merge. Okay, it seems like it should be M, but it's not. It's E. I'm going to rename this Eagle Feathers. So just to distinguish my layers, or Eagle Feathers, yeah. I'm going to save it. Okay. Now here's the next step. I hope you guys are still with me because, as I said, this is going to help you. These are due this week, so I want you to have all these tools at your disposal. All right. right now the edge of my eagle's head is this harsh straight line. It's ugly, right? We don't want that there anymore. How do we further blend this eagle into the penguin feathers? What are some ideas that you guys might have to merge the two to make them morph better together? How would you approach it? And there's several ways to do it. So I would like to hear more than one suggestion. Great edge over here.
I kind of want to say like blur tool.
The blur tool. That's one option. Does anyone have any other ideas? What do you think, Luke?
Just erase it.
Yeah. Okay, so you can use the eraser tool. That's another. So I want everyone at this point, I'm going to ask you guys to be really focused and patient with me in what I'm about to show you, because this is going to be the difference between making this like amateur versus sophisticated. Are you ready for this? Okay. So what I'm going to do, there's a few options. I'll start with the eraser tool as option one. So I'm on my eagle feather layer. And in fact, I'm actually going to duplicate this layer now, just so that I have it as backup. Always duplicate your layers. It's important. Okay, I'm pressing the eraser tool, E. Now, do you guys see that you can see the definition of some of the eagle's feathers right here? Right? So I'm actually going to erase that. And what I'm going to try to do is create an edge where it's just those rounded eagle feathers. And I'm working with the shapes that I'm seeing. So I'm trying to curve those edges, and it's almost like I'm drawing them. I'm cleaning up the edges of the feathers that I can see. Okay, working my way along. And like even over here, this got a little funky. I'm gonna get rid of that. Okay, working the edge. All right, so that's just one thing. What do you guys think? As I zoom out, this area right here, is that really starting to blend in? It is, right?
Yeah.
Pretty nicely. So that's one thing. What you can also try doing is, here, I'm just going to go a little further, just so you can get the effect here. Okay, so that's using your eraser tool. Let's talk about the lasso tool. Okay, what I also want to do, these feathers, these eagle feathers are much bigger than the penguin feathers, correct? In some of the sections at least, not so much the front area. Watch what I'm going to do. This is going to be a really cool trick. You can also take your lasso tool, and I'm going to just select a certain area of feathers. I'm not being crazy neat about it. You'll see why in just a second. Okay, there's my selection. And I'm going to do Control C to copy, and then Control V to paste. And what that just did is it created its own layer of what I just drew. And I'm going to drag that layer underneath the head, and watch. I'm going to start moving it around. Do you see that? So it starts to actually kind of make it like a little bit more soft and seamless between the two. And watch what I'm going to do. I'm pressing Control T. I can also change the size of these feathers. I could use the warp tool with them, but I want to change the size and the shape to be a little longer, because if you look really carefully, these penguin feathers are much more like a long diamond shape. So I want my eagle feathers to kind of match that. And they're going to be smaller and longer to match the penguin feathers better. Okay, let's see how that's looking. All right, that's looking pretty good. All right, what do you guys think about what I just showed you? Okay. And finally, one other thing, and you can do, by the way, multiple layers. Like you can do that this way, and reversely, I just want you to see this. On the penguin, I went to the penguin layer. I'm going to use my lasso tool here. Let's see. Okay. I'm just going to move this layer around. You can also, take different sections from the two animals. Like maybe I want to make my penguin's feathers even bigger to match the eagle a little more. Oops, sorry, one sec. I did Control T, I'm pressing Shift. And now I'm making those bigger to kind of morph into the eagle. And if it's too light right here, guess what? I can always tone it down with the different tools that we just learned. Okay, so that's just one thing. Then the other thing that I also want to point out to you guys is using the healing brush tool. Are you guys familiar? You guys are familiar with that. So you can use the healing brush because you know what? We don't want all these funky pixelated areas that happen when we were playing around with the adjustment layers. In red, it's weird. Oh, okay, you have to press Alt, by the way, to make a selection and fix it. That's one thing. You can also use your stamp tool and be very fine-tuned about this. And your stamp tool can allow you to just select a little tiny area of color and paint with it and duplicate that color. And you can work your way down and it will look a whole lot more seamless and much better. Okay? Okay, so I'm just going to save that for now. And we will leave it at there. I hope this was helpful. All right, so that's color and lighting. And that is your way of really starting to morph these animals together. You would continue that technique. Like in my case, I still wouldn't leave these feathers brown. I would use my same technique and color match with all the different tools that we learned today in the next section of the brown feathers of the eagle's head. And that's really going to start to work, okay? And detail is key. We would just continue to be more and more detailed this week. There's other things that we'll have to go over and discuss, but just to show you, like this penguin's nose is sticking out. So on the background layer, I would actually paint the sky over the nose, or not the nose, but the beak that's sticking out over here. And you have to be more detailed about things like that. Okay, so I'm going to save my work.